Well, welcome everybody to the Conquer the Chaos podcast. I am your host, Clayton Mask, co-founder and CEO of Keap, and I'm really excited today because we have somebody who is such an accomplished entrepreneur who knows the highs and lows, the early stages, the great triumphs. Someone who's been in and around software for a long time. So I've heard of him a lot, but I've never had a chance to actually talk to him until today. So I'm really excited about it. Sangram Vajre, thanks so much for being with us on the Conquer the Chaos podcast.
Quite excited to be here. Let's talk about the problems and the challenges that we all are facing every day. And maybe there are some wins along the way that we can talk through.
I love it. The chaos, right? Well, tell us, Sangram, tell us a little bit about your background. You've done so much as an entrepreneur, but just give the audience a little feel for who you are.
All right. So from a entrepreneurial perspective, I ran marketing at Pardot. This is like really back in the day. And then we got acquired by ExactTarget in 6 months. So I went from a small company, SMB company, to a bigger company, about 1,000 people. And within 6 months, ExactTarget got acquired by Salesforce, which is a 10,000 people company. Yeah. So I went through that chaos of just reimagining everything I knew and how to do in a really 6 months time frame. And it really changed a lot of how I think about building a business now. That all happened in about 2013 and 2014, late 2014, I started another company called Terminus. We went from like just 3 co-founders to about 300 people. We had a private equity buyout a couple of years ago. In that company, it was a software company. So we raised over 100 million as part of it. We helped build a new category that didn't exist before. But in the early days, we didn't have any money. In early days, nobody knew us. In early days, we were building this movement. I ended up writing books that my father would be like, so like, what? You wrote English words? How is that even possible? So, but entrepreneurship makes you do some of those things. So I did that. And now I have a new startup called Go-to-Market Partners. So going from a product world and software world now to services world. And this go round, we're not raising any money. We're building a proper like a lifestyle business, if you will, and building it from ground up. But I'm using some of the same principles that I've learned in the software world over the last 2 decades.
Okay, awesome. So I think everybody listening can hear you've had the experience all the way from brand new startup to a company with 100 employees, a company with 1,000 employees, a company with 10,000 employees. I mean, you've had a wide range of experiences, and now you're doing a lifestyle business as a lifestyle entrepreneur, trying to take all these things you've learned and conquer the chaos.
Yeah, and it is so interesting, Clay, because people say, well, why would you ever do this? Why would you go from a product company to a services company when you know how to raise money? Why would you go do that? And a lot of times, I think it comes down to, at least where I am in my life right now, is that I want to work on something for the next decade of my life. Mm-hmm. That I feel passionate about, that I'm not trying to get another job. I'm not trying to just get another win. I want to really build a solid. And when I say lifestyle, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm 3 days working and 3 days on a beach. Like, that's not a lifestyle business. I'm talking about like still hard work. We're working, 50 hours plus a week, but you're doing something that you just care about and passionate about. And you want to do that for the next 10 years, but not because somebody told you so, because you want to do.
Yeah, well, and what you've just described, you and I have lived in the software world a lot, and for a lot of times, lifestyle entrepreneurs, the software world and the way that Silicon Valley does it, and capital and all that stuff, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And frankly, it's not real small business. It's not what lifestyle entrepreneurs normally do. And I have great passion for the lifestyle entrepreneur, what you just described, and because it's not about just building something off and selling it, or, building something up and selling it off as quickly as you can. It's about your passion. It's about what you love to do. And, most of the time that is a service business for lifestyle entrepreneurs. Not always. There are product businesses as well, but most of the time it is service businesses. And so I'm really excited to have you on because the world that we serve of entrepreneurs generally speaking, they are lifestyle businesses. There are some that are, have big dreams and plans to scale something big, and they may want to raise capital, but the vast majority don't. They have they have this passion, this thing they love to do. They want to create something that impacts their customers, and that they have a great thing for their employees. But they also want this business to provide freedom for them
Yeah.
in terms of money, time, control over their lives, and impact.
Yeah.
And that is, the quest that most lifestyle entrepreneurs are on. And yet, a lot of times, finding that freedom is very, very difficult. And
Yeah.
the chaos of the business swallows them up. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Tell us, give us a little background first on you. What makes you tick as an entrepreneur? You just told us that you're passionate about what you're doing, and you want to work on this for the next 10 years of your life. Where did you get the the entrepreneur bug?
Oh man. Well, I'll go back to, I'm originally from India. I came to United States in 2002, and I went to University of Alabama, which it's a culture shock in any, you coming from India, small town, to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Like, I don't even
Yes.
know if anybody can really fully fathom how different of a world you're walking into.
Can
And
only
over there,
imagine.
right? And over there, I was like, well, I didn't have enough money. I had $350 as part of it. And my parents said, well, we're taking a loan for your first semester. Now you go figure it out. So I had to figure out, Clay, like, what am I going to
Yes.
do? So
Yeah.
even before entering the university to go to my first class, I was trying to look for jobs because I had to figure out a way to pay. And one of the things I found out in University of Alabama, Tuscaloosa, that there is a department called Critical Languages Department.
Hmm.
And if you could find three kids to learn a different language, you actually can get your entire tuition paid for.
Oh,
So I just literally found boys with that have like girls that they were dating that had Indian background, and then similarly, and I found those three people or four people and said, "Do you not want to learn Hindi? Like, you should learn a language that your other person in their family is like." And they bought into that dream, which I was selling to them, and they signed up for it, and that paid for my
that.
entire tuition in University of Alabama. And I had to then go and buy the book because I didn't know how to teach. I know growing up the
Yeah.
language, but so I bought the book on Amazon. But I feel like that was the moment when I realized that I actually can sell. And I
Mm-hmm.
think part of entrepreneurship is that you better find a way to have a way for other people to believe in something that you believe in. And if you believe in something, if that comes across from you, I think the other person would buy it, even if they don't believe and fully understand what they're getting. But if they trust you, believe you, they will take that leap forward. And I think that was my taste in the beginning of it.
That is a great story. You said several times in that story, figure it out.
Yeah.
Your parents said you're going to need to figure it out. You said I got to go figure it out. You realized I can figure it out. And I think that the figure it out gene is very strong in entrepreneurs. They
Yeah.
realize, oh, you know what? I can do this. I can figure this out. I realized, I have that gene as well. And one time I was reading, it was in the early stages of running our business, and I was, we were just totally trying to figure it out, trying to get a product that fit in the market. And I was reading a a uh, a story about my great grandpa that his son, my great uncle, had written. And this story, that my great grandpa was also an immigrant, and he told the story late in life. He said, I used to tell people when I was young, pick me up, drop me in any city with nothing in my pockets, and by the end of the day, I'll have a new suit and money in my pocket. and and he just had that mentality that I'll just go hustle, I'll go to work, I'll go find a need, I'll work and figure things out. And so, I've noticed that about entrepreneurs. They're not afraid of figuring it out. They're not afraid of moving into something that's like, just like my grandpa, just drop me out down anywhere and I'll go find a way to earn money, create value. And I love that you went and just had your parents ingrain that in you, and then you hit campus at Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and decided I got to figure this out,
Can
and
you
you did
imagine
it.
that, right? Like, it's great. And I'll tell you one more thing that maybe aligned around this, the figured out part, is that I've been a serial DNF student. So I've never been an A student in my school, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
so what that teaches you is that, you're not better than anybody else, right?
Yes.
It's ingrained. Like, I knew growing up, like, oh, I'm not the smartest kid in the place. I'm just not that kid who learns everything and does everything and ticks every box. So you have to like figure out like how are you going to stand out and how you're going to do things. And I think entrepreneurship, Clay, I wonder how you think about it, is a lot of that, because you're not afraid to
Definitely.
fail, because you're not afraid of somebody saying no to you. Like, what's the worst that can happen is say no. It doesn't stop us from testing and giving. And
Yeah.
I look at a lot of people who are like, man, you're so brilliant. If you actually just believed in yourself a little bit
Right.
more and allowed yourself to fail, like, that combination is really what we're made. It's nothing special. It's just that is like, yeah, okay, we'll fail and we'll figure it out. It's the obvious thing. It's like, we want to figure out how to fail,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's
We
what we
failed. That's
know.
what helps us figure it out.
Yeah, right.
Yes. No, I completely agree with you. And I think that's, the point about grades is a very interesting one. Um, I remember at one point I was in graduate school, they said, the A students, I can't remember what it was. The A students go into academia, the B students, and it's the C students that make all the money. And I remember thinking, oh, really? Is that actually how it works? And over time, I came to realize it's actually pretty dang true.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's not so much the top students that end up doing really well financially in life. Not obviously there's some exceptions to that, but there is a lot of truth to that, and I think especially in entrepreneurship, this is true. You have a lot of times entrepreneurs are just we're not great students, but we from a classroom standpoint, but we study and learn really well and figure stuff out and adapt, and we're not afraid of that failure that creates the winning. So I love it. I think that's a great point. So tell me a little bit about what what lessons did you learn in your bigger companies that are now helping you in your lifestyle business as an entrepreneur?
Well, with the Pardot through Salesforce, I spent a couple of years at Salesforce purely for that reason. I wanted to learn how Salesforce does its magic. How do you build $1 billion company? I just wanted to know, not that I want to build $1 billion company, but what is the mindset of somebody who is actually thinking like that? Like, what is it that's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what was super interesting to me was they at Salesforce, I heard Mark Benioff, and he would have all the executives come together and he would share, like, here's the message for 2012, for example, at that time. And it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be customer success is the new thing. It's the customer. Every company needs to build a customer success platform. And he would use Dreamforce as the one anchor event, as the forcing function to get product to deliver on product, for
Mm-hmm.
sales to hit quotas, for partners to go create an ecosystem, an app exchange, and all that. And he will get the entire community behind it. And he would use that one forcing function to galvanize the entire company, and as a matter of fact, the entire industry, the entire media around that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that for 2 years straight. And I learned from that was, you got to create forcing functions.
Mm.
If you don't have a forcing function, certain things wouldn't happen. And I think at a big company, it just works. Is what else? How else are you going to get the product to deliver? Everybody has excuses like, well, can you deliver all this? Well, yeah, I'll try to get it to do it. Nothing really forces, but until that, you have to show up in front of 100,000 people and deliver this product
Yeah.
keynote.
Yeah.
That will get somebody going. You got to sell so many deals at this, right? You got to build your part. Like, so it allowed me to think about, in any business that I've ever built after that, like both Termis and GTM Partners, we use forcing functions, and we have just learned to do events
Yeah.
really well. And
Yeah.
and none of the events cost a dime to us, by the way. Like, we can get into that if people are like, well, events cost like 100. No. You can build a small 10%, 100% event, and still not, it won't cost you a dime, as long as you know how to execute and you're creating value for people. And that's how you build businesses. Both of my businesses started with that premise, and that's a big lesson I learned.
Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit. You know, I certainly have appreciation for what you're describing at the, you know, Salesforce and their Dreamforce annual conference. You know, what we did for years then Infusionsoft with Icon, what we're now starting to do at Keap with the Let's Grow Summit. Um, and I appreciate the power of events to galvanize people to drive product. There's so many things that you're talking about that just really resonate with me. If I'm sitting out there as a lifestyle entrepreneur, it's me and two other people in my company. What's the principle that you're describing that I could apply to help, you know, propel the business forward? Talk about what you learned and how, you know, how they could apply this in their business.
So I'll give you a real example so people can then use that and apply for it.
Great.
At Terminus, when we started as three co-founders, we are like exactly what you described. We're just sitting in a room, sitting in Atlanta, thinking, well, who the heck cares about us, right? Like, why
Yeah.
us? Like, you know, so you get to those midnight moments where we're like, was that a mistake? Like, why are we doing that? Like, you know, you sometimes look at 3 a.m. in the morning at the ceiling trying to figure out a strategy. We all had these moments,
Yes.
and maybe continue to do so. And during that time, I was like, well, how I want to do an event like that's a great idea. So I reached out to everybody that I knew who could sponsor an event and said, I want to do a Terminus event. I want to launch an event in the marketplace. Guess what, Clay? Everybody said no. Why would I sponsor your event? Like, it makes no sense. I was like, we didn't have funding, we didn't have money. We are like, well, no, you pay. And they're like, why would we sponsor your event? Makes no sense. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do? So on a flight, long story, like I came up with this idea called Flip My Funnel, which was the idea to just change the way you talk about the problem that in the marketplace, instead of focused on this broad spectrum. Everybody knows a funnel and the leads come in and only 1% turning into customers. What if there was a better way to do it? And so I bought a domain for $8 called Flip My Funnel, and then wrote about it, and then reached out to the same sponsors, people, and said, hey, look, I'm putting together an industry event. It's called Flip My Funnel. Each one of you will be allowed to do a keynote. As long as you don't pitch your product, you will be allowed to do a keynote. The only point is you got to talk about how you're going to challenge the status quo of marketing and sales at this event. 100% of my 10 sponsors that I reached out to said yes. So
That's awesome.
We put together the first event, all paid for by these 10 sponsors. They all got to do the keynote as long as they're not pitching their product. And we were a booth just like everybody else. We ended up selling 25 deals out of it because I'm doing the keynote, I'm setting the narrative for it. So people knew who's behind the event, but it wasn't a Terminus event. It was a Flip My Funnel event. 300 people showed up to that event, and that became a road show, that became a podcast, that became a book, that became a movement. And all that was started with almost the idea that how do I take an event like that, build something like that, but without any money? So we never paid a dime to build something like that.
I love that. I mean, it's a really great leadership moment where you see something that people can grab onto, you start writing about it, and it starts to attract, and then you're able to execute an event like that. You know, and I think it's a great example. I think of a similar, you know, the same principle that I see every day in small businesses, that is just holding a webinar, an in-person seminar, just even if it's 10, 20 people, it's just the point is that you are doing something one to many, instead of trying to do one by one. And I think, you know, if you take the heart of the principle that Mark Benioff at Salesforce is leveraging, is he's getting a huge audience so that it's this mass message that he's able to deliver. But if you apply the small business version of it, it's just, do you want to do phone calls one by one? Do you want to do things one by one? Or do you want to talk to a group?
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to put a group together. You know, you see financial planners putting groups together at a steakhouse to have a seminar. You see, you see people getting on and doing a webinar with 10 people talking about, you know, some problem that is challenging that, you know, that target customer.
Right. I'll even add one more thing to that as you think about it, is we recognizing because we want to build an industry event, that means it's not our event. We actually invited, and this might shock some people, we invited our competitors to come and speak at the event and be part of the keynote.
Mm-hmm.
and not just once, but every single time. So by doing so, by default, we became an industry leader.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a very next level thinking for somebody to just start using that as a way. Like, one is, yeah, you can put an event together and get people together and allow your marketing and sales process to work. But imagine if you actually became the de facto standard in the
Mm-hmm.
industry or in your region or in your city, whatever place that allows your small business to do, and you actually had the you actually became the go-to, so people knew you for it. The reason we
Mm-hmm.
became a leader wasn't because we could just talk about it. We became a leader because everybody else, even our competitors, talked about us, and
Yeah.
they drove people to our event, and we already had the people who would come. So, and not once, they literally said, well, if you're going to do it and you do it that well and you're not pitching as we're not pitching, yeah, we'll do it, without necessarily everybody knowing the fact, or at least subconsciously, that in a year's time frame we were so far ahead in the headspace for every one of our customers and future customers that when they thought about ABM, they thought about us. And that
Yeah.
is a really big shift from when you think about how do you get inbound coming to you, and how do I not just keep calling people to get deals done, but people are not coming to us because they know that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's, that thinking of sort of going beyond the competition and actually setting a standard, that's something that it's a principle that works very effectively. We see it all around us. A lot of times you see competitors pop up in retail locations right by each other, and it seems a little bit odd, and then you realize, oh, well, that just makes it really convenient. I mean, that's the whole concept of a mall. You just bring a
Yeah.
lot of people together, and when you create a marketplace, so to speak, the way that you did with an event, then you bring a lot more traffic, you bring a lot more people into it, and you establish yourself as the leader, the way that the developer does when they put together the shopping mall. So
Right.
that's a really, I think it's a great principle, and it doesn't necessarily just need to be something you do in thought leadership to establish an industry. Small businesses can do that by just bringing people together. I think one of the things that holds back small businesses more than anything else is the rugged individualism that causes
Yeah.
them to think they got to do it all by themselves, instead of
Yeah.
like just partnering with people and collaborating with people and bringing more people to together. It creates a better dynamic for business to occur, and it's something you've done well, so that's very cool. Tell me, as you get going in this lifestyle business that you have now, what what are the things that you're learning that maybe you thought, oh, well, this is very different than, when I was in, I thought I had this figured out. I thought this would be easy. And the reason I'm asking is that I went from being at a larger software company very early in my career to then starting the company here at Keap. And I will tell you that so many things that I took for granted in that company, that I just didn't realize. I mean, I had to come to, I had to do everything by myself now that I had a couple of partners, but I was doing all the sales and marketing. I was trying to get the revenue going entirely. And I just didn't appreciate at the time how much infrastructure and resource and sort of just a running head start you have when you're in a bigger company versus when it's you, and it's like you've got to figure this all out. So that's something I realized was, whoa, there's so much that you have to go do to set the foundation getting a business started that I didn't fully appreciate until I was doing it myself. I'm wondering what types of lessons you're learning as you get going at this type of a business versus the kinds of businesses you're in before.
Well, I mean, this is probably a therapy moment for a lot of people because, we literally, like, this week, we're like, all right, 2024, we have to figure out what kind of do we do W-2s or 1099, like, all the employees,
Mm-hmm.
because of the amount of tax you pay is like, wait a minute, what? We're paying this much? Like, why are we
Right.
doing this? So
Right.
it is like mind blowing. You never really see those things. And then the other part is, the last company, we raised money at the end of the day, and we're a VC-backed company. We raised over
Right.
100 million. So you really don't think about cash flow. in a way that you have to think as a services business. Everything is cash flow, like
It's
the money coming
small
in. So
business is cash flow.
it's all cash flow, and like it's
Yes.
really hard. Like, wait a minute, we sold like for example, we're at 2.5 this year, and I'm very transparent, so I share with people everything what we're doing, and even write about it. So hopefully one day somebody could look at it and make much of it. But that doesn't mean we have 2.5 in the bank.
Right. Right.
You have to explain to your team like, oh, everybody's celebrating. Oh, we got 2.5. No, that's 2.5 that we will get next year. Like
Right.
this year we still had like one, or and our payroll is more. So so all of these things are what we have a phrase inside of our company called burn less calories. Not in in the season that we are in, we're probably we want to burn more calories, but burn less mental calories.
Mm.
So we are burning so many calories on things that are not productive, and I'm learning to very quickly weed them out. How
Yeah.
do we not do the things that are just creating busyness in the business, as opposed
Yep.
to everybody working on the most important thing in the business? So important, because in an SMB, you don't have a lot of wiggle room to waste a resource of like 3 months on something. You have to make sure those things are working, or you got to have a really good plan B on some of those things. Otherwise, most companies, they never run out of money, run out of ideas, right, Clay? What they run out of is money.
Yeah.
So, as an SMB, I think we all are recognizing, everybody listening probably has 50 other ideas on their existing business or new businesses. The problem is you never run out of ideas. You will always run out of money.
No, absolutely. I always say the difference between big business and small business is the time that you need to get an ROI.
Yeah.
In small business, you've got to get that ROI. You got to get a return on the investment right away. In
Yeah.
big business, you can wait. It can take a long time. And so, I think that savvy lifestyle entrepreneurs are really good at following their nose at what's going to pay off quickly. And they
Yeah.
do those things that pay off quickly. And then over time, the business gets bigger and bigger, and you can start to do things that take longer. But yeah, it's, when you don't, we built our business to 7 million before we raised capital. And, I loved the bootstrap years. And to be honest, I didn't so much love the years when we had a lot of capital, because there was a ton of waste.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I don't like waste. I love running a profitable business. It's the right way to run a business. And, there are reasons at times to invest more and to be unprofitable, but I don't like that phase. I like the phase of running a profitable business. And that's the way most small business owners run their company, because like you said, cash is king. You got to have cash in order to make it work. And so, the entrepreneurs that sometimes struggle are the ones that have lots and lots of ideas, but they don't narrow in on and focus and execute on the things that are going to produce cash the quickest.
Yeah,
And so
it totally can derail. Like, I have one of the mental frameworks that I've used is this idea of a dreamer, doer, driver, which literally is most entrepreneurs are dreamers. You probably, as I've said those words, most of them have already associated themselves with one of those two. Oh, I'm a dreamer,
Yeah.
which is you have ideas and you want to do great things. I've learned I'm a dreamer. I don't know, Clay, it sounds like you're a dreamer as well, because you're coming with ideas. But as I go through it, see if you change it. I'm a dreamer, but and to me, new ideas is how I just wake up. I wake up with 10 ideas. Like,
Right.
I don't do anything. I don't have to work out to come up with 10 ideas. It's just how I wake up.
Yes.
So I have to work extra hard to not vomit all my ideas on my team, and be very careful of not taxing everybody, because they all get taxed with my new ideas. So
Right.
to be very diligent, I write it down, I put it somewhere, I find ways and opportunities to make sure I'm saying bringing the ideas when it makes sense. So I have to tax myself to do that. And if I can execute on new idea well, then I earn the right to be a dreamer. Otherwise, I'm just distractor and chaos for the rest of the company, right? And a driver is somebody who's like, all right, I know where we need to go. I want to go there yesterday. Like, you need a driver in you or on your team that's going to take you faster. I want everything yesterday kind of person. But the problem with them a lot of times happen is they're so going at it that they burn themselves out, or they burn the team out. So
Yeah.
you have to be careful around that part of it. And then the third one is a doer, which is like they're the most trusted people in the company. They get stuff done, and you may be a doer leader, and you the people we trust you when you say something that's amazing. But they need this vision, they need this dream, that why am I doing what I'm doing? Otherwise they just have a long list of to-do list, and they never end that to-do list. They keep doing, because they that's what they're doing.
Right.
So I've learned the hard way that a great small team, or a big team, and even in large companies, but in a small team, even more importantly, finding a dreamer doer driver set of team
Mm-hmm.
makes it very good business. If you had a whole bunch of dreamers, then you're all cooking up ideas and nobody's getting things done. Like, you don't want that. Maybe
Right.
you're facing that in your
Right.
organization. Maybe if you have all drivers, you're just killing each other, because
Mm-hmm.
you're all having priorities and you want to go fast. Nothing is really productive. And if you're all doers, you're just working yourself to death, and really doesn't have a vision where you need to go. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if you see that, Clay, as well, is a great combination of dreamer to a driver.
Absolutely. I love the way you say it. It's very sticky. It's very similar to what Michael Gerber says in the E-Myth, with the visionary, the manager, and the technologist, or the technologist. And basically the idea is the visionary is the dreamer, the manager is the driver, the way you're saying it, and the technologist is the doer. Well, when we read E-Myth early on in our business, it was very impactful, because Scott, Eric, and I could see ourselves in that very, very clearly.
Yeah,
Scott's more the dreamer, Eric is more the doer, I'm more the driver. That's
there
that's
you go.
just, and we all have a little bit of each of them, but
Right.
if you just had to say which one do you best fit, Scott's the best dreamer, I'm the best driver, and Eric's the best doer.
That
And
is such a winning combination, right? Like,
yeah,
it feels like a wholesome when you
yeah,
when you pull that together.
absolutely, absolutely. And I love your dreamer, driver, doer. I think that's a fantastic way to put it. And I think for, if you think, if for our listeners, if you think about it, you really want to build out that complementary skill set. And if you're sitting there and it's just you need to be thinking about which part of my time am I dreaming, which part of my time am I driving, which part of my time are doing, because you got to get those balanced out if it's just you. But more likely what you'll want to do is start to hire contractors or partners or family members or whatever to build out that dreamer, driver, doer skill set. It's a really good way to say it, Sangram. I love that.
Yeah, and I've learned that the hard way too, because once I actually hired somebody, multiple times actually, I hired somebody and I was wrong.
Mm,
And I'm like, wait a minute, this person came highly recommended. They have been in the industry. They have seen that Dean being there. We talked, they get it. Like, what's
yep.
the problem? Why did I fail? And within 2 weeks, we just, oh no, it's not the right person. Happened it one more time. And Clay, that's when I realized, oh, I'm hiring for the skill set, not mindset.
Yeah. It's
So,
a
so
great
if
way
you're
to say
building a
it.
new department where you need somebody to come in and like just figure it out, you need a dreamer. You don't need a doer driver. They may be there in a big company, have done that. They have teams. No, you need somebody who said, "Oh, I love chaos. Like, this is great because I got to build it." But if
Right.
you got a great operations going on, you don't need a dreamer there. They're gonna
Yes.
blow things up. So you need
Yes.
somebody who can keep the trains running, and you want somebody who just checks it and make sure everything is done right. So it's a good combination of skill set and mindset when you're hiring your first set of team members. And I've learned the hard way that, it's not always, mostly actually is not about skill set, it's actually about mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
SMB is so much about that.
Yeah. When I talk to our customers and listen to entrepreneurs, one of the most crucial points for the business early on is when they hire their first salesperson.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the business owners doing sales, or they've been kind of, somebody's been wearing that hat, but now it's time to actually have a person who that's what they do. And I think back in the early days of when we were hiring sales to get the business going. And I remember the first person that we hired in sales was um, less of a doer and more of a dreamer. Like, he
Mm.
liked the idea of being a part of this entrepreneurial business, but he really wanted to just sit
Yeah.
around and dream more than get on the phones and just go hustle and figure out
Yeah.
how to sell.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. And, it was one of the most painful hires we had, because it was that scenario where there wasn't enough money to pay him and us. We needed to actually not pay ourselves for a little bit while we had him on the payroll and he was supposed to start producing. And when he didn't produce at the rate we needed to, we got to a point where we're like, okay, we got to let this guy go. And we all liked him, but he didn't have the just hunting, hustling, go get it done. It was more of wanted to sit around and strategize with us. And it was like, that's not what we need. We
Yeah,
we need you
yeah,
to get on the phone and go figure it out and come back and tell us what do we need to adjust in order to be able to sell more effectively. And then I think about subsequent hires we made and in sales who were just like, go get it done. And there was a total difference there. And I just think it's because that first sales role is so critical. You need someone who is able to just go execute like crazy and just plows through walls and is going to do whatever it takes to sell. And that is not something that small businesses get right every time.
no.
I see them missing on that one over and over and over.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, if anybody, I mean, the greatest encouragement I can give anybody right now, because I'm in the boat right now with anybody who's in the $1 to $5 million business range, is no two conversations are the same back to back. You could, like, I could have a day of where one meeting is like, oh, everybody's the team is really happy, or somebody on the team is really happy, and the very next meeting is about somebody on the team is very sad. And you have to adjust. On one, you sell $100K deal, and the other one, you just lost a customer. So we all have to be so resilient on it. And one of the things I learned, Clay, is also that my energy level matters to the team that we are getting to lead in SMB. And if you're one or two people, it really does matter. So if I go by the meetings and the energy of the meetings up and down, instead of having a consistent meeting, no matter what's going on, and just having a little steady, know that not everything is not perfect. And just, I walk in every day. My prayer every day is to just have wisdom and discernment on what is happening, and actually really try to solve problems, and expect problems, as a matter of fact, and not to walk in a day. The problem is when a day I wake up like I'm so happy, I'm so all good, and then a first problem hit and I'm like, oh my goodness. No, I need to wake up expecting problems, to not be like negative,
Right.
But like my job is to problem solve, move roadblocks, find ways. That's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I signed up for.
I love it. So let's finish with this, because I love the mindset is the number one key to success for entrepreneurs, and you're touching on it right now. And I agree with you that a lot of times we as entrepreneurs are going in hoping everything's going to work out well. You think about the common phrase of have a good day, and that mindset is like, you're hoping that things go well for you. Instead of like, no, I'm going to go make it a great day. Whatever happens, it's going to be a great day. I'm going to go make it great. And I know there's going to be all kinds of crap that happens, but I'm going to make it great. And I think that if we're not careful, we end up living into a day-to-day life of like hoping things go well, like getting validation from the world that things are going well in our business, instead of like, no, we're just driving our business forward and it's going to be great. And we know there's going to be issues. And like you said, you expect those things. How can an entrepreneur get into that space? How can they avoid that tendency we have as human beings to kind of seek the validation that things are going to be okay, or try to sort of passively live in a way that I'm going to have a good day, versus sort of imposing my will on the market and running my business in a way where I can stay positive and make it great no matter what comes my way. Do you have any tips for how to get in that right mindset?
Well, I'm about to show you something. So I have this thing. I do this every day. I write down on a piece of paper, if anybody could see it. It's literally has 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things to do, and my prayer for the day. And
Love it.
I just learned this over a period of time, that at the end of the day, my list is never going to end. The problems that are going to come to my way, it's just never. But at the beginning of the day, I want to start with a clear mind of like, what am I grateful for? So the fact that we get to do the business, that I have to use the right words, not that I have to do the business, I get to do it. right?
Yes.
I get to do this. So everybody, we all get to do this stuff. So let's first and foremost, like, what are the things I'm grateful for? So I write down those three things, and it's typically like, God and family and team. Like, those are typically the three things
Love it.
coming. Three things to do is typically, what are the most important three things I need to do today? And it could be a sales call, it could be a one-on-one meeting, or it could be thinking whatever those three things are. And my prayer for the day. Like, that's how I start every single day for several years now. And
Fantastic.
at the end of the day, I just scratch off the three things to do. So even if there are 100 emails that I haven't answered, or even if I did what I could, and I can lay my head down saying that I put an honest day words of effort.
I love
And
it.
at the end of the day, that's what we are called to do, and I think we need to do.
Thank you for sharing that. Fantastic advice. Um, I can't recommend that enough. I have a little gratitude journal that I write it in the morning, at night, and it's something very similar to what you just described. People can go get it. It's put out by Intelligent Choice. Go look at their 5-minute journal. They call it the gratitude journal, but it's something very similar to what you just described, and it just helps us set our mindset the right way at the beginning of the day, and then reflect on it at the end of the day. And it's powerful stuff for entrepreneurs, as mindset is the number one key. Well, Sangram, this has been fantastic. I feel like you and I could go on talking for hours, but we've gone a little longer than we normally do for the podcast because this has been so much fun. But I appreciate what you've shared. I think you've had a lot of big company lessons that you're applying in small business. I love the passion that you have for as a lifestyle entrepreneur, and I really appreciate the thoughts that you've shared. I think your dreamer, driver, doer framework is a really good way for people to think about building their team in the early stages. And even if if they're a solopreneur, they can think about those
Yep.
three hats that they wear, so to speak. And I love your advice on mindset. And it's very obvious that you live it every day. Your energy is it comes through, and I've loved having the conversation with you. So, any last words that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up?
No, I just echo on one thing, is like, we get to do this, friends. Like, we get to do
Yes,
this, Glade. And the day I made that switch in my mind, it made a tremendous difference in the way I operate every day. That we get to do this. There's so many worse things you could have. You could be in such a different part of the world today. You could have so many other issues in family and whatnot. But if you're an entrepreneur today, you get to do this, and that is a phenomenal blessing. So own
I
it,
love
live
it.
it, and do your part.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Sangram. This has been a great episode, and I know that our listeners will get a lot out of this. I think that way you finished it with "we get to do it" is a fantastic piece of advice. Thanks, everybody, for listening in on this episode of Conquer the Chaos. Get out there and do great stuff, build your business, and keep growing.